Far above the quiet blue curve of Earth, something older than memory came to a stop, without fire, without sound, and without any sign that it obeyed the rules of motion, known to science. Satellites lost signal for less than a second, just long enough for instruments to record a shape that did not fully exist in 3 dimensions. Then the world's screens filled with a calm silver light, and every language on Earth heard the same gentle voice. It did not shout, it did not threaten, it simply asked for a representative. Panic moved faster than reason. Governments argued, scientists demanded time, and the public searched the sky for danger that never came. The object remained still, patient in a way that felt more frightening than any weapon. Within hours, old space records were opened. Fragments of distant signals, strange disappearances of long-observed alien civilizations, and repeating patterns hidden in deep space data, all pointed to a single truth. This presence had appeared before many times, to many worlds, and every world it visited was now silent. No message of war had ever been recorded. No attack had been seen. Only one question repeated across centuries of scattered evidence. What do you desire? Because of that pattern, the choice of who would answer became the most important decision in human history. Leaders first thought of sending someone powerful, someone who could speak strongly for Earth. But the deeper analysts studied the past disappearances, the more afraid they became of ambition itself. Every vanished civilization had shown signs of rapid growth, expansion, and hunger for control shortly before their signals ended. So the search changed. They no longer wanted the strongest voice. They wanted the quietest mind. After long debate, they chose a man few people had ever heard of. His name was Elias Rook. He was a systems engineer who repaired orbital communication arrays and wrote careful reports that no one outside his department ever read. He had no political loyalty, no public following, and no history of seeking power. Psychological reviews described him with words like steady, patient, and uninterested in fame. Some leaders hated the choice. They believed history demanded a hero, not a technician. But fear of repeating the unknown fate of other species was stronger than pride. In the end, Elias received a simple message on an ordinary morning telling him to report to a secure facility immediately. He thought it was a mistake. Only when he saw the sky through reinforced glass and the silent shape waiting above the atmosphere did he understand that the world had changed without asking his permission. The journey to orbit felt unreal. Doctors tested him again and again. Advisors tried to explain what little humanity knew. No one could tell him what would happen after he spoke. Several times he was offered the chance to refuse. Each time he quietly shook his head, not because he felt brave, but because the situation already felt larger than personal fear. When the small transfer vessel finally separated from the station and drifted toward the waiting presence, every movement became slow and careful. Instruments failed, one by one, not broken, just no longer meaningful. Distance lost its clear definition. The object seemed both near and impossibly far, like something seen in a dream. Then the vessel stopped moving, even though no engine fired. A doorway appeared where no surface had existed before. Soft silver light flowed inside, warm enough to feel welcoming, but strange enough to remind Elias that he was no longer in a human place. He stepped forward because there was nothing else to do. Gravity changed gently, guiding his feet to a smooth floor that looked like glass, yet felt like stone. The air carried no smell. Sound faded until even his breathing seemed respectful and quiet. At the center of the vast chamber stood a figure shaped almost like a person, formed from shifting light that suggested age beyond counting. Elias understood without being told that this was the one humanity's hidden records had named the Arbiter. For a long moment, nothing happened. The silence did not feel empty. It felt like being watched by time itself. When the figure finally spoke, the voice was the same calm tone heard across Earth. neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It carried no anger and no kindness, only certainty. What do you desire? The question was simple. Every government, every strategist, every frightened citizen had imagined this moment. Lists of possible answers had been prepared in secret. Requests for unlimited energy, protection from death, knowledge beyond imagination, and power to defend Earth from any threat had all been carefully discussed. Elias remembered those lists. He also remembered something else. In the briefing room, a historian had shown him the final transmissions of a distant alien culture discovered decades earlier. Their last message had celebrated a new age of perfect strength and endless expansion. Hours later, their signals ended forever. Standing before the Arbiter, Elias felt the weight of those silent worlds. He understood that the wrong desire might not only destroy humanity, but confirm a pattern written across the stars. Still, the question waited. It did not repeat. It did not rush him. He noticed something unexpected then. The being in front of him did not feel like a conqueror. There was no sense of victory, no pride in judgment. Instead, there was patience, mixed with something almost like exhaustion, as if this moment had happened too many times before. That small detail changed everything. If this were a test of greed, asking for power would mean failure. If it were a gift, asking for safety might show fear. Every obvious answer suddenly felt dangerous. So Elias did what he had always done when machines behaved in ways he did not understand. He tried to learn first. His voice sounded very small in the endless chamber, but it did not shake. I want to understand. The silver light around the Arbiter shifted slightly, the first visible reaction since he had arrived. The silence deepened, not empty, but surprised. No translation delay followed. No hidden condition appeared, yet the question had clearly never been answered this way before. Clarify, the Arbiter said softly. Elias took a slow breath. I don't want power, or weapons, or forever life. I want to see why you ask this question. I want to know what happened to the others. I want to understand the truth before anyone chooses anything. For the first time, the chamber felt uncertain, as if reality itself paused to listen. Far below, billions of humans waited for a decision that would shape their future. None of them could hear the quiet words being spoken in orbit. None of them knew that history had already begun to change. The Arbiter moved closer without crossing space, the distance simply becoming smaller. Light folded gently around Elias, not touching him yet surrounding him with impossible depth. You request perception, the being said. Yes, Elias answered. Understanding alters the one who receives it. I know. Most who stand here seek to change the universe. None have asked the universe to change them. Elias did not know how to respond to that, so he remained silent. Silence felt honest. Another long moment passed. Then the Arbiter raised one hand formed from flowing brightness. Your desire is granted. There was no flash, no pain, no dramatic sound. Instead, reality opened, like a curtain pulled aside. Elias did not move, yet he was suddenly standing on worlds that no longer existed. He saw oceans under unfamiliar stars, cities grown from crystal, and skies filled with ships celebrating victories older than Earth's first civilizations. He felt the pride of species that had believed themselves unstoppable. He felt their certainty that the future belonged to them alone. Then he felt the ending. Not war, not punishment, simply disappearance, as if something vast had noticed their brightness and quietly erased the light. Scene after scene flowed through him, faster than thought, yet clear as memory. Each lost civilization had answered the same question, with the same hunger to rise above all others. Each had received exactly what it wished for, just long enough to shine. And shining had been enough to draw attention from the dark between galaxies. The visions stopped gently. The silent chamber returned. Elias fell to his knees, not from force, but from the weight of what he had seen. Tears came without shame. He was not mourning strangers. He was mourning possibilities. When he looked up again, the Arbiter watched him with something new in the endless silver glow. Not judgment. Hope, fragile and unfamiliar. "You understand extinction," the being said quietly. Elias wiped his eyes, breathing slowly as ordinary reality tried to feel real again. "Yes," he whispered, "and you're not causing it. I am preventing greater loss." The meaning settled into place with terrible clarity. The question was never a reward, it was protection. Far away, Earth continued turning in peaceful ignorance. People argued, hoped, prayed, and feared, all at once. They did not know that their future now depended on what one quiet engineer would choose to do with impossible knowledge. Elias pushed himself back to his feet. He was still afraid, but the fear had changed. It was no longer fear of the unknown. It was fear of choosing wrongly now that he finally understood. And somewhere deep inside the ancient being before him, something waited that had not waited for any other species in countless ages. A different answer. The chamber remained silent, holding the fragile beginning of a future no one had ever seen before. Elias stayed on his knees for a long time after the visions ended. The chamber was silent again, smooth and endless, as if nothing had happened. But inside him, everything had changed. He could still feel the echoes of lost worlds, their hopes, their pride, and the quiet moment when each of them disappeared. The memories were not fully his, yet they felt real enough to hurt. Slowly he stood up. His legs were weak, not from injury, but from understanding too much too quickly. The Arbiter remained in front of him, calm and patient, the silver light around her moving like slow water. She did not rush him. She had waited through the rise and fall of civilizations. Waiting a few more minutes meant nothing to her. Far below, Earth continued to send signals toward the silent object in orbit. Scientists tried to measure energy that did not behave like energy. Religious leaders spoke to frightened crowds. Politicians argued about what Elias should ask for when communication returned. None of them knew that the most important request had already been made, and that it had nothing to do with power. Elias finally found his voice again. It sounded older than before. "You showed me their endings," he said quietly. "But you didn't destroy them." "I did not," the Arbiter answered. "Something else did." "Yes." The single word felt heavier than any long explanation. Elias looked at the endless floor, trying to organize thoughts that did not want to stay simple. He had seen beauty greater than anything on Earth. He had seen joy, art, science, and kindness, and forms humanity had never imagined. Those civilizations had not been monsters. They had simply wanted to grow strong enough to feel safe forever. "And it comes for anyone who shines too bright," he said slowly. The silver light shifted in gentle agreement. Ambition creates signal. Signal creates attention. Attention creates ending. Elias closed his eyes for a moment. The logic was cold but clear. Survival in a dangerous universe might depend not on strength, but on restraint. Humanity had always believed the opposite. Every story of progress, every dream of the future, was built on the idea of becoming greater, louder, more powerful. If the visions were true, that dream could become a death sentence. "Why ask the question at all?" he asked. "Why not warn everyone directly?" "I have warned," the Arbiter said. "Understanding without choice does not change behavior. Desire reveals destiny." Elias thought about that. On Earth, people ignored dangers they did not want to face. They continued harmful habits even when the future cost was obvious. Maybe entire civilizations behaved the same way. A simple warning would not stop ambition. Only a decision made freely could do that. So the question is a test, he said.
A chance, she corrected gently.
He looked up at her. Has anyone ever answered the way I did? No. The word carried no pride, only truth. For the first time, Elias felt the full weight of being human in this moment. All the noise, conflict, and mistakes of his species suddenly balanced against one quiet difference: curiosity instead of conquest, questions instead of demands. It felt too fragile to trust. What happens now? He asked. The arbiter did not answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than before, like something unused for a very long time. Now I decide whether humanity should be hidden or allowed to risk becoming visible. A cold feeling moved through Elias's chest. Hidden meant safe, but also small. Allowed meant freedom, but also danger. He understood that this was not only her decision. It depended on what humanity would choose once the truth was known. They won't all accept restraint, he said quietly. Some will still want power. Yes, and if they try to reach for it, the signal will grow. Elias turned away, walking a few slow steps across the endless floor. Each step felt like carrying the future of billions of people. He was not a leader. He was not trained for this. He fixed machines. The writer was a Nikon. He wrote reports. He lived a quiet life that never expected history to notice him. Yet somehow, history had placed him here anyway. He stopped walking and spoke without turning around. If you hide us, do we survive? For a time. The answer was honest. And, because of that, frightening. Nothing in the universe lasted forever. Hiding would only delay the danger, not remove it. And if you don't hide us, your choices will determine your fate. Elias gave a small, tired laugh with no humor in it. That sounds like the hardest option. It is the only path that allows growth without extinction. He looked back at her. You're hoping we choose differently. I am observing, she said, but something in the silver light felt close to hope. Silence returned, but this time it felt thoughtful instead of empty. Elias realized the conversation was no longer only about survival. It was about meaning. All those lost civilizations had reached incredible heights, yet their stories ended the same way. Power without wisdom, expansion without balance. Maybe humanity's weakness, its doubt, its arguments, its slow progress, was not a flaw. Maybe it was protection. What do you need from me now? He asked. To carry truth to your world, the arbiter said. Choice must belong to humanity. Fear returned, sharp and immediate. They might not listen, that was true. Not perfect, but true. Humanity argued constantly, yet sometimes it surprised itself with wisdom. Elias had to believe that, or nothing mattered. If I tell them everything, he said slowly, panic could destroy us before any cosmic threat arrives. Yes, and if I hide the truth, we repeat the same mistake as the others. Yes, every path carried risk. There was no safe answer waiting to be discovered. Only responsibility. For the first time since arriving, he felt something steady forming inside his fear. Not courage exactly, something quieter. Acceptance. Then I'll tell them, he said. The silver light grew warmer, almost like relief. That is why you were able to ask for understanding. Elias frowned slightly. You mean the choice was already decided? No, she said. Only the possibility. He nodded, slowly. That made sense in a strange way. Freedom always included the chance to fail. A distant vibration moved through the chamber, so soft it was almost imagination. Elias felt it more than heard it, like pressure far away in deep water. The arbiter became very still. What is that? He asked.
Consequence, she answered quietly. A cold realization spread through him.
Something noticed. Not yet fully, she said, but attention has direction. Panic tried to rise, but he forced himself to stay calm. Fear would not help now. Because of Earth, because of many signals, she said. Yours is only the newest. That was both comforting and terrifying. Humanity was not alone in danger, but danger was real. Can it be stopped? He asked. Unknown. The honest uncertainty felt more frightening than any clear threat. Elias understood then that the universe was not a story with guaranteed victory. Survival would depend on choices still waiting to be made. He looked at the Arbiter with new determination. Then we need more than hiding. Yes, we need a different way to exist. For the first time, the silver light around her brightened sharply, like a star seen through water. That possibility has never succeeded. There's a first time for everything, Elias said softly. The words surprised even him, but once spoken, they felt right. Humanity's history was full of impossible first times. Flight, space, peace after war. None of it had seemed likely before it happened. Maybe survival could be another impossible first. The distant vibration faded, leaving only silence again. But the silence no longer felt empty. It felt like the pause before something important begins. What happens when I return to Earth? Elias asked. You will speak, the Arbiter said, and humanity will answer the same question you faced. What do you desire? He whispered. Yes, the future was no longer a mystery. It was a decision waiting to be made by billions of ordinary people who had never imagined the weight of their desires. For a moment, sadness touched him. Life had been simple before this. Small problems, small hopes, quiet days. He would never return to that normal world again, but maybe normal had never been safe. He straightened his shoulders, feeling the fear still there but no longer in control. Then send me back, he said. The Arbiter watched him closely, as if memorizing something fragile. You carry more than knowledge now, she said. You carry possibility. I hope that's enough, he replied. So do I, she said, and the words sounded almost human. Light began to gather around him, gentle and bright. The chamber softened, distance folding once more. Elias felt gravity change, time stretch, reality preparing to return him to the small blue world waiting below. Just before the light closed completely, he asked, one last question. If we choose wrong, will you abandon us? The Arbiter's answer came through the brightness, quiet but clear. I have never stopped hoping to be proven wrong about extinction. Then the light took him, and the silent chamber disappeared, leaving behind only an ancient being watching a fragile species approach the most important choice in its history. Light faded slowly, like morning mist leaving a quiet field. Elias felt weight return to his body, gentle at first, then real enough to remind him that he was human again. Sound followed next. The soft hum of machines, distant voices, the fragile noise of ordinary life. When he opened his eyes, he was lying inside the transfer vessel, strapped safely into the seat he barely remembered leaving. For a few seconds, he did not move. The memories of vanished civilizations still rested inside him, heavy but clear. Part of him wondered if everything had been a dream created by fear and isolation. But the silence in his chest told him the truth. Dreams faded. This had not. Outside the small window, Earth filled the darkness, blue and white and painfully beautiful. He had seen worlds brighter than this one disappear without warning. Seeing Earth still alive felt like a miracle he had never noticed before. Voices reached him through the communication system, careful and controlled, but unable to hide their urgency. Doctors asked about his condition. Engineers asked about the vessel. Officials asked if the entity had spoken. Everyone wanted answers at the same time. Elias closed his eyes again, not to rest, but to prepare. Words mattered now more than ever. One wrong sentence could create fear strong enough to destroy hope before hope even had a chance. "I'm alive," he said, quietly. His voice sounded rough, as if it had traveled a very long distance. "I need to speak to everyone. Not just leaders. Everyone." Silence followed on the channel. Requests like that did not belong to ordinary engineers. But nothing about this moment was ordinary. After a long pause, a calm official voice answered that preparations would begin immediately. The vessel turned toward the station, moving with careful slowness. Elias watched Earth grow larger, feeling time move in a strange way. Part of him was still standing in the silent chamber with the Arbiter. Another part was already on the ground, facing billions of frightened people waiting for a future he could not promise. When he finally reached the station, medical teams surrounded him, scanning his body and mind for damage. They found nothing they could measure. No injury, no infection, no sign that he had touched something beyond human understanding. Only Elias knew the truth. Some changes could not be seen by machines. Hours later, he stood in a quiet room facing a single camera. Behind the walls, leaders from every nation argued in low, tense voices. They wanted control of the message. They wanted to protect their people from panic. Some wanted to hide the truth completely, but the agreement made before Elias left Earth still held. The one who answered the question would choose how to speak about it. A technician counted down softly. Lights brightened. The camera began to record. For a moment, Elias forgot every prepared sentence. He saw only the small, dark circle of the lens and imagined the billions of eyes behind it. Workers, children, families, strangers, people who had never asked to carry the weight of the universe. His fear returned, sharp and cold. Not fear of death, but fear of failing them. Then he remembered the silent worlds. He remembered beauty turning into emptiness. And he understood the truth, even painful truth, was the only chance anyone had. So he spoke simply. "They asked one question," he said. "What do you desire?" Across Earth, cities grew quiet. Even places without screens felt the pause, like the world itself was listening. "I did not ask for power," Elias continued. "I asked to understand why other civilizations disappeared. Breath seemed to leave the planet all at once. People had expected promises, not warnings. There is something in the universe," he said carefully, choosing each word like it mattered. Because it did. It notices when a civilization grows too loud, too fast, too hungry to control everything. Every species that reached for unlimited power was found and ended. Shock spread through governments, through streets, through homes. Some refused to believe. Some felt anger. Some felt terror so strong they could not move. Elias kept speaking, his voice steady, even while his heart raced. "The being above Earth is not our enemy. She's been trying to protect life by finding civilizations willing to choose another path. A quieter path. A wiser one." In hidden rooms, leaders exchanged worried looks. This was not the message they had planned to shape. It was too honest, too dangerous, too real. "If we try to become the strongest force in the galaxy," Elias said, "we will send a signal that could destroy us. Maybe not today, maybe not soon. But eventually." Silence followed his words, deeper than any noise. Humanity was hearing something it had never faced before. Survival might require giving up the dream of domination written into so many stories of progress. Elias felt the weight of despair beginning to grow, and he knew he had to speak the second truth before fear took control. "But extinction is not certain," he said. "There is another possibility. No civilization has succeeded yet, but that does not mean it is impossible." Pope moved carefully through the silence, fragile, as glass. We can choose cooperation instead of conquest, balance instead of endless growth, curiosity instead of control. If we do, we might become something the universe has never seen before. Tears filled some eyes, anger filled others, but no one could ignore the choice placed in front of them. Elias finished with the simplest truth he knew. The future will not be decided by one leader or one nation. It will be decided by what humanity truly desires, not what we say, what we choose. The camera light dimmed, the message ended, but the real moment had only begun. Across Earth, reactions spread like storms. Some people demanded weapons strong enough to fight any cosmic threat. Some called for peace and unity. Some denied everything, choosing comfort over fear. Old conflicts tried to rise again. Old fears tried to divide. Humanity stood at the edge of two futures and could not yet see which one it would step into. High above, the Arbiter watched in silence. She had seen similar moments on countless worlds. Hope rising, fear answering. Choice turning slowly toward extinction. Yet something felt different this time. Not certain, not safe, just different. Days passed, then weeks. Earth did not unite perfectly. It argued, stumbled, and struggled the way humans always had. But something small and new began to appear inside the chaos. Nations started sharing resources instead of hiding them. Scientists opened secrets once protected by pride. Ordinary people spoke about the future not as owners of the stars, but as caretakers of a fragile home. The changes were uneven, imperfect, slow, but they were real. Still, danger had not disappeared. Deep in space, attention continued turning, ancient, patient, and hungry for bright signals. Humanity's noise had not yet reached it clearly, but time was moving. One night, as Elias stood alone watching the stars from a quiet hillside, the sky shimmered softly. Silver light formed beside him, calm as falling snow. The Arbiter had come closer to Earth than ever before. "You have given them truth," she said. "They're trying?" Elias answered. "I don't know if it will be enough." "Neither do I." He looked at the stars, feeling how small everything was. "If we fail, will anyone remember we tried?" "Yes," she said gently. "I will." The promise felt both comforting and unbearably sad. Elias took a slow breath of cool night air. "Then we keep trying," he said. Far beyond sight, something ancient continued to listen to the universe, searching for the bright noise of ambition. For the first time in ages, it was hearing something unfamiliar from a small blue world. Not silence, not conquest. Something uncertain, changing, human, and the future, still unwritten, waited to see what that fragile difference would become.